Okay, so welcome to my virtual kitchen and my demonstration for the sausage goulash for your next practical. Okay, so some of the equipment that you're going to be needing for this recipe is going to be a sharp knife, a tin opener, wooden spoon, teaspoon, and obviously a large saucepan, which you'll see shortly when we start cooking. The ingredients you're going to need is a pepper, some mushrooms, an onion. It can be a red or a white onion, it's entirely up to you. I just have red onions. The main ingredients: sausages. These can be vegan, vegetarian or meat. A tin of tomatoes, preferably chopped tomatoes, some paprika and a little bit of water, some sugar just to sweeten it a tiny bit because the tomatoes are quite sharp, and some plain flour which will thicken your mixture. Okay, so I'm going to make a start. All right, to start with, we'll prep with the peppers. Now, I've washed my hands, I've got an apron on and I've got my hair tied back, so make sure that you attend to your basic hygiene and safety before you make a start. Okay, you're going to be using your claw and bridge cuts again. You did these last term and also last year if you did food in year 7. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to start with the pepper. You can use a red, a green, yellow, orange, whatever colour pepper you want. It can be the small sweet ones, it can be one like this one. It's entirely up to you what you've got in your cupboards. Right, so using your sharp knife, take the top and then you're going to cut one side off of the pepper. And then turn it and cut the next side off, turn it, cut the next side off, turn it and cut the next side off. And then that way, if you just trim off the bottom, you are left literally with the seeds and what's left of the pepper. And you just get rid of that, okay? Then you're going to use the bridge, okay, where you cut between your forefinger and your thumb, and cut your pepper into nice equal size pieces. This is the claw that I'm using. Remember, you've got your fingers at right angles to your knife, okay, so that you can't chop the end of your fingers off, and you're holding your food in place with your thumb and your little finger at the back like this, okay? So once you've chopped this up into small pieces, you can then move on to the next food. Now, peppers and mushrooms are usually stored in the fridge. We're going to be looking at temperature controls as part of your theory to do with this today, because you're going to be working with high-risk foods, which is your sausages. But some vegetables are stored in fridges as well to prevent their deterioration and the food spoiling. Okay, so the next thing is my mushrooms. Now, I've got 2 large mushrooms. I've actually taken the peel off them because they were looking a little bit sorry for themselves. I've also taken the stalk out, but again, that's entirely up to you. If you've got small mushrooms, you can cut them into quarters. If you've got big mushrooms like this, cut them in half like that, using again the claw, and then turn them flat side down and then slice using the claw, keeping your fingers out of the way. Okay, you want them into nice fine slices. Now, if you're not a fan of mushrooms, you can leave the mushrooms out. They're there for flavour. Or you could cut them up really, really tiny so that they virtually non-existent in your food. You can't see them, but you'll still get some additional flavour to your food. Or you can leave them out altogether and put something in like courgette or aubergine. Okay, now I'm keeping my vegetables separate because I don't want them mixing together, because I'm going to be adding them to the pan separately. Right, so we've got the onion. Now, like I said, I'm using a red onion because that's what I've got in my fridge. But you can be using a white onion. You could even, if you wanted to, use spring onions. Okay, and if you don't like onion, you can leave them out. It adds flavour. Right, so to prepare an onion, that's the top. Remember, the bit at the bottom has got the roots on the hairy bum. Okay, that's the bit that stays intact. So take the top off like that, and then peel. You can see the rings, so you want to take the peel off. Now, if it's a bit awkward to peel, you can always cut it in half again. This one's coming off all right, but sometimes they can be quite papery. Okay, so peel, and then you're left with the root intact, because that's what holds the onion together, and it's also the bit that makes you cry because it's the strongest part of the onion. Make sure your peel is off your work area, so that you're not going to get it mixed up with the onions that you're going to chop. Cut your onion in half, so you've got two halves, flat side down, and then you've got your root at the end, and then you're going to use the point of your knife and you're going to chop down using the claw, but not going through the root. Okay, like that. Then you're going to turn it to right angles, and then again using the claw you're going to chop it into chunks. Okay, and then get rid of the root when you've finished. Again, if you go through, you'll see the natural lines on your onion. So again, if you're going through it like this, okay, nice fine slices, but don't go through the root because the whole onion is kept together. And then again, using the claw, holding the onion together, slice the opposite way, so you've got your nice fine chunks. Okay, and once you've done that, get rid of the root, put it into your food caddy, your waste, whatever, for your recycling of your food waste. Okay, and pop that on one side, so move all your onion to one side. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open the tin of tomatoes. I want everything prepped before I start cooking, and this is called mise en place. Okay, now some of you may have the ring pull tins, some of you may have to use a tin opener. Now, if you're not familiar with tin openers, because I know some students are not, ask an adult to help you if you're struggling. All right, this one clips on the side, it's got a wheel there, clips on the side, and then I pull the two handles together like that. So as I pull it together, you hear that click, it pierces the top of the pan, the tin, and then I just turn the cog and it works its way around. Now, it's not the best of tin openers, this. It's had a few years worth of wear and tear. You want to make sure that you loosen all the tin away from the top, away from the tin. Now, it's proving quite difficult because it's not the best tin opener in the world. It has seen better days. That's it. Okay, now don't get your fingers in there to pull the lid up. Use the teaspoon or the handle of a fork or something to pull the lid back. Now, obviously, if you've got a ring pull one, it's a lot easier. Right, so my food is ready to prep, ready to start cooking. I've got my paprika, I've got my sugar, I've got my sausages here. Okay, so I'm now ready to start cooking. Okay, so we're going to start cooking. You need a large saucepan, and as I said to you before, a wooden spoon. Now, my cooker's a gas cooker. Some of you may have electric. It's all about gas temperature control. So pop your gas on. You want it to a medium-high heat. Okay, it's quite fierce, my cooker. All right, and to that, I'm just going to add a tablespoon of oil to start off with. All right, now the sausages I'm using are vegetarian sausages. I did make this with meat sausages yesterday, but the video didn't work as well as I'd hoped. Okay, so to this I'm going to add 4 sausages. Now, obviously, if you want to cook this for the family, when we're in school we only have an hour, but when you are at home you might want to cook for everybody. Right, now I've just handled some, I know it's vegetarian, but effectively it's the same as raw meat, so I need to make sure I wash my hands after handling raw meat. Raw meat contains bacteria and it needs to be stored at a temperature below 5 degrees centigrade in the fridge to ensure that the bacteria stops growing. Okay, it doesn't kill the bacteria, it just stops it. Right, now this is where I've got a bit of temperature control, because obviously you can see it's spitting at me. You don't want the hot fat spitting at you, but you do want to keep moving the sausages around in the pan, just gently, just to start to colour it a little bit. Now, I haven't used these sausages before, so, and it looks like the skin's coming off them, so they might break up. Yeah, that's the skin off the sausage. Lovely. Okay, so we just want them to brown off a little bit. And get a bit of colour on them before we start to add the other ingredients. I'm not impressed with these sausages, to be honest. I've never used them before. Okay, so we're just browning them off. You do exactly the same with the meat sausages, however the skins won't come off the meat sausages, the same as they come off these. I'm not leaving them in the pan because I don't want them sticking to the pan and then creating a burnt bit on the bottom. Alright, so keep moving them around. Okay, I have turned the temperature down because I don't want it I don't want them absolutely welding themselves to the pan. So you need to make sure you do some temperature control. Now the problem is with an electric cooker, unless you're lucky enough to have a halogen, the halogen hobs, they turn down quite quickly. Very receptive, just like the gas ones. If you've got the more original electric cookers, sometimes the easiest thing to do is just move the actual pan off the actual hob, just to cool it down for a minute. Right, now it's starting to get a bit of colour on. I'm going to start adding my vegetables. So first of all, I'm going to add in my onions and my peppers. Okay, this is why I wanted you to keep your ingredients separate on your chopping board. Okay, and I'm going to just move those around the pan just to allow them to soften down a touch. Okay, once they've softened down, I'm then going to add the mushrooms and the rest of the flavouring. I'm going to turn that up again now. Because I've added some food to it, it's taking the temperature down in the pan, so I want to get the temperature back up. It's all about temperature control with this. And it's not just temperature control in your cooking, temperature control in the storage of your food. There are certain foods that can be stored at ambient temperatures, and those are things like in tins that are stored in your cupboards, the flour, the sugar that I'm using, the paprika, the tinned tomatoes. The onions can be stored in the fridge. They don't have to be, but sometimes they will last a little bit longer in the fridge. Peppers clearly need to be stored in the fridge because they are food that will deteriorate quite quickly at warm temperatures. Mushrooms again in the fridge. Sausages definitely in the fridge. So you've got bacterial growth. Bacterial growth happens when the food is kept at a warm temperature. Warm temperature being, funnily enough, your body temperature of 37 degrees centigrade. It's the perfect breeding ground for bacteria to multiply. So when we have food, high-risk foods like sausages and meat, eggs, fish, cooked rice is also another high-risk food. They're called high-risk foods because they contain food, they contain moisture, they require warmth for bacteria to grow, and they're a perfect host for bacteria. So we reduce bacterial growth by storing in the refrigerator between 1 and 5 degrees centigrade. This puts the bacteria to sleep. Doesn't kill it, it just makes it dormant. It doesn't do anything. Killing it, we need to cook it to above 75 degrees centigrade. That's the best way to get rid of bacteria. bacteria or food that's kept at a temperature. I've just added my mushrooms now to this because I want to just get those sort of softening down as well. Bacteria, if it's not killed at 75 degrees centigrade, will, when it's ingested, start to multiply at 37 degrees centigrade. The danger zone is between 8 degrees and 63 degrees. So your body temperature is right smack in the middle of that danger zone. And that's when you can get things like food poisoning. Okay? If we freeze foods that contain bacteria, again, that doesn't kill it. All that does is suspends it in the ice, because there's no moisture for the bacteria to grow. But as soon as it's defrosted, it starts again. So it's important that you understand the correct storage for foods, where you put them. The general rule of thumb I usually say to most students is, if you buy it from in the supermarket, it comes out of the fridge, it needs to go back in the fridge. And similarly, if you buy it from the freezer, it can go back in the freezer. However, there are some foods like rice, which you buy dried and is kept in the cupboards. Once you've cooked that rice, that then needs to be cooled very quickly and then stored in a fridge, because it becomes a high-risk food once it's been cooked. Right, as you can see, while I've been waffling, I've been stirring this round. All the vegetables have started to soften. So I'm just going to turn the temperature down, because I'm now going to add the paprika, a good splodge of paprika, get some flavour in there. I'm going to add a teaspoon of sugar, and then I'm going to add a teaspoon of plain flour. Now this doesn't have to be plain flour, you can use corn flour if you want to. Oh, very nearly went into the pan then. Did that last time. So give it a stir round. Okay, and what happens is that flour will start to thicken the sauce. However, there is no sauce in there, so I'm going to add the tomatoes, the tinned tomatoes. And then I'm also going to add about 1/4 of the tin of water. Okay, and then turn the heat back up again. Stir that round, and I'm going to leave that now to bring it to the boil, and then leave it to simmer for about 20 minutes to make sure that those sausages are cooked. Okay, and then I will show you the finished dish at the end. Okay.